the headline after headline, the kind of repetitious nature of all of these indictments coming out, now there are 4 of them. People can't keep them all straight. They're just all over the place, and it can lead to, people feeling overwhelmed or people just feeling a bit of fatigue, and like you mentioned, feeling bored. I have the same theory with all of the stuff that we were told we needed to freak out about Trump doing when he got into office. Remember back in 2016, it was every week. It was a new thing that Trump was doing, that sources say he's doing this new horrible thing that we all need to freak out about. And after a while, it's like, I can't keep up with all the things I'm supposed to go protest about. Just,
Right.
And you and I stay plugged in. The average American citizen eventually is just going to start tuning, eventually the average American citizen started tuning out a lot of what the news was saying about, oh my God, Donald Trump did this horrible thing, because it's literally like, what did he do now? Which eventually served to benefit Donald Trump, because all he had to do was saying, look, every time you turn on the news, they have something negative to say about me. That's because the news is fake. That's because the news they're all controlled by the left. When actually, I think some of these news organizations, obviously, like setting MSNBC aside, we know there's a bias there, just like there's a bias with Fox News. But some of these news organizations were actually doing their job, and they were just reporting the shit you were doing, and you deserved all of those negative headlines. But the perception is that, hey, I can just poison the well. Hey, every time they report something negative about me, it's fake news. Every time they say something negative about me, they're all biased. They're all just leftist journalists, which is why he was
right. But that's not true. I mean, that's not true. They might present the material they present on television might be of a certain slant, right, left, as you say. However, corporations as a whole, are conservative organizations. It's not like it's not Wolf of Wall Street going on in corporate. It leans conservative.
Yeah, which is why I think the coverage of Trump changed after 2016, 17 to, instead of saying like, here are the facts of what he's doing, there's, we're going to have, here's what he did. Here's the facts. We're going to have this person from the left argue with this person on the right, and the person on the left and the person on the right are going to say the same things over and over again. And we're just going to present this like it's a both sides issue, instead of actually, no, this guy is objectively doing bad. And I think they got to the point where they stopped even reporting the facts. They were just like, hey, here's this thing that we heard, and we got the left person, we got the right person, they're going to argue, and we're going to present this like it's, some people say this, some people say that. Like there's no actual objective truth anymore. And the tsunami of bullshit continues to the point where, nobody actually can pick apart or tell apart all the different things that are happening that Donald Trump is doing. And if you're on one side of the aisle, you just hate him. And if you're on the other side of the aisle, you just think he's a martyr, and then that's it. And there's no, actual objective truth never gets through to people who've just decided they love him, right? And I think the same thing's happening with these indictments. It's the same tsunami of bullshit. People can't tell them apart anymore. And eventually people are just going to tune it out.
I mean, can you blame them? There's too much other shit going on. The price of eggs is through the roof. Gas is going up again. They keep telling you that the economy is recovering, but, spending seems to be down. People are kind of reserved about what's going on economically. The housing market has cooled a little bit, but you still need, $600,000 to buy a house anywhere. Where are we going with all this? And to tell you the truth, this ain't making the Democrats look good.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about this this morning. All of that spending from the pandemic is, we're paying for that now with the inflation that we're having. Now, every country spent a lot of money during the pandemic, which is why we have global inflation. We have global inflation right now. We are actually handling the inflation better than everybody else. The inflation in the UK, the inflation in Africa, the inflation in Europe, the inflation everywhere else is a lot worse, including Canada. But you can't tell that to people, because when they hear 5, 6, 7% inflation, they're like, what the fuck? That's still not good.
Yeah, but it's on the heels of having inflation at all. We shouldn't be sending so much money to the Ukraine. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous. When we have Flint still doesn't have water. Ohio has not been cleaned up. We have migrants sleeping on the street. It's not okay.
Well, that's exactly what Putin wants. And I think we had a chance for peace a little bit ago when Putin was on the back foot, and we didn't go for it because Zelensky didn't want to give up Crimea. And now that Putin has recovered from being on the back foot, he's figured out how to get around the sanctions, and he's doing this end around in Africa. He's saying, I see your Ukraine and I raise you France's influence and everything France benefits from in Africa. I'm going to stir the pot over here. I'm ready to.
Right. I mean, well, let's not underestimate Putin. If you really think he didn't know that he was going to get hit with sanctions, he knows all this. The guy's ex-KGB. He plans 12 steps ahead. Yeah. So he already knew the maneuvers of the Western countries. He knew what NATO was going to do, and he planned accordingly. Yeah, he knew that the U.S. was not willing to get directly involved and start bombing and shit, first of all. Just like he knows we're not going to get directly involved and start bombing in Western Africa. He knows there's no appetite for that. And he knew, okay, you're just going to do a bunch of sanctions. All right, you're probably going to come after these businesses and stuff. And okay, yeah, he knew. Yeah, that's no idiot. Yeah, I think he has certainly outplayed Joe Biden, because the other benefit to what he's doing in Africa is, he's done a bunch of photo ops with African leaders, specifically with very young leaders. The youngest, global leader right now, the youngest head of state in the world right now is the president of Burkina Faso. He's 35. And they just did a photo op where Russia forgave a bunch of Burkina Faso's debt to Russia. Never mind the fact that the debt was bullshit in the first place. Right. Okay. And they also came to an agreement where Russia was going to give them grain. Now, why did they need grain? Well, Burkina Faso was getting their grain from Ukraine at first. But as part of Putin clapping back against sanctions, he's blocking Ukrainian grain from getting to Burkina Faso. So now he's coming in and saying, hey, I'll give you the grain. But what that does when it gets to social media is that erodes support amongst African Americans who are Joe Biden's base, because they're like, oh, look at what Russia's doing. We were told Russia's the bad guy. And then they get back to what you're saying. Why the fuck do we still need to keep giving money to Ukraine? But my thing is, they're not going to give that money to us. That money's not coming to us at all. The Republicans are going to block that. And to your point about housing, even if inflation is stabilizing and the economy is getting better, the price of housing was supposed to come down, but it's not coming down as much in New York and California. Why? Because all the people who bought houses back when inflation was low and interest rates were also very low, none of them are selling the houses. And at least in the Bay Area, nobody is greenlighting any new housing. The NIMBYs won't allow you to build any housing. So even though interest rates are high right now, prices should be coming down. They're not. Why? Because nobody's selling, so there's barely any demand, and there's barely any supply, even though there's still some demand out there. Right. And we're not building any new housing. Right. And when new housing, prices will be coming down, though. And when the economy is unstable and there's a war going on in the world, it's not really the time that people want to just start, moving and schlepping around. It's just not what they want to do. Yeah. And people don't want to be told that the economy is getting better when they still can't buy a house because the housing prices still aren't coming down in any meaningful way. Right. Agreed. Yeah. And people don't want to be told you should be glad that inflation isn't as bad as it is in other places. You can't tell people that when their grocery bill has gone up, a significant percentage. Absolutely. I mean, even the prices at Costco, man, every time I go to Costco, I'm shopping for 3 people. Every time I go to Costco, I spend $1,000. Jesus. And I'm not getting anything. It's one cart. It's not like I'm not coming out of Costco with 3 carts of food. It's one full cart to my car, and it's always almost $1,000 with tax. Wow. So what are people doing on a day-to-day basis who can't go to Costco and have to go to a regular supermarket or don't have me? Because the reason I shop at Costco is because it's such the best bang for your buck. But what if you're not near one? What if you don't have a car? I mean, honestly, I look around sometimes. I'm like, how are people making it? Yep. To be continued. The war will continue. Inflation will continue. The nonsense in this country will continue. And we'll remain on the sidelines, coast to coast, and report to you what we see. Good luck out there, kids.